It will be one of the world's longest tunnels, one of them. Look behind me, folks. Anyone on the 401, the gridlock is absolutely terrible, busiest highway in North America. And why wouldn't I be up front? And we're doing a feasibility study. So the feasibility study will come in and we'll be transparent. But I'll tell you one thing, we're getting this tunnel built.
So Doug Ford wants to ease traffic for millions of Ontario drivers, and as you heard, it's in a very ambitious way. Today, the Ontario Premier announced plans to explore building a tunnel for traffic and transit under Highway 401. That feasibility study is looking at running the tunnel between Brampton and Scarborough. That's about 55 kilometres. But traffic is not the only thing on Doug Ford's mind this week. The Premier has been out several times with a controversial message about Ontario's homeless.
Do you know what the best way to get people be able to get out of the encampments, get out of homeless? Get an application and drop it off one of these companies and start working. But if you're healthy, get off your ASS and start working like everyone else is. You're young, you're healthy, and you can work. You have to find gainful employment. That's what you need to do.
Sabrina Nanji is a journalist and founder at Queen's Park Observer, and she's here to break down Doug Ford's week. Sabrina, quite a week it's been already, and it's only Wednesday. I mean, Doug Ford's looking to build a tunnel under the 401. I mean, I'm not an engineer. I don't know if you're an engineer. Is this going to work? How's it going to work?
It's Doug's big dig, and you're right. There's a lot more questions than answers at this point. The Premier pulled off a hat trick. He did 3 press conferences in as many days this week, and each day, he's managed to nab headlines. Today was another bold proposal, as you mentioned, a tunnel under the 401. He says at this point, there's going to be a feasibility study, but he also came out saying that we're going to build this thing essentially no matter what that feasibility study says. This is, we don't really know about the cost. We don't even know the cost of what this feasibility study is going to set taxpayers back. But what we know is that the Premier says this is going to go ahead. Opposition critics are, scoffing at this proposal, saying that this is not something serious to address something like gridlock. And of course, just throw it onto the pile of early election clues that we might head to the polls early in Ontario.
Yeah, well, get it done was the slogan, right? So he's applying that here. But you mentioned Ontario NDP leader Marit Stiles, she reacted to the announcement. She was dismissive of it. I mean, what else are you hearing from the opposition?
Yeah, I mean, she called this, an unserious premier. We had Bonnie Crombie saying this is the back of a napkin fairy tale approach. And I think this is, a bold proposal that clearly has a lot of us talking, but it's as Mike Schreiner, the Green leader said, this is a distraction from other things that the Ford government might not want to face scrutiny over during this extended summer recess, right? Healthcare, housing. Don't forget about their Greenbelt investigation that the RCMP is conducting right now. And so the opposition parties are saying, this is just a gimmick that Ford is putting forward to distract from the important issues that are going on in Ontario right now.
Okay, but he's been talking about gridlock and congestion a lot this week, right? Like Doug Ford's all about suburban commuters. That's a power base he wants to appeal to. And when he was asked about the customized environmental process about building Highway 413, which is another project he's championing, here's what he had to say.
There's hundreds of thousands of people stuck in their cars backed up from here to Timbuktu, and you're worried about a grasshopper jumping across the highway. We need to start building.
Why such an emphasis on this? Is it really just making the commuter's life easier? That's his ballot box issue that Doug Ford wants to target here?
I mean, we have seen that in the past, right? The 413, even though there are still a lot of questions about it, we're talking about this new tunnel. Ford still hasn't told us the cost of Highway 413, and that was a major platform plank of theirs in 2022, and when they won a bigger majority mandate, right? So we can, assume that voters like this, especially in the 905, especially in the GTA. This is something that Ford has done in the past, right? Motorist-friendly policies that tends to, attract voters in the GTA, vote-rich areas where he obviously wants to, make up new ground and keep what he's got right now. So I think, this is, of course, fueling early election speculation. But again, as I said, it's going to be up to voters. But I think that there's just so many questions at this point right now. It feels almost like a pie in the sky proposal. At the same time, opposition critics are right. Gridlock is something important. We had the Toronto Region Board of Trade saying that we need bold ideas to get us out of congestion right now, especially in the downtown core.
Okay, on Monday, Ford also made some headlines when he said that healthy people need to get off their ASS, as he said, and work. He doubled down on those comments yesterday. What's the reaction to all of this been from the Premier?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that municipalities all over have been struggling with. Perhaps we might think that, encampments are a problem in more urban areas like downtown Toronto, but the Premier made these comments in Cobourg, right? And he was asked about, more than 1,000 people on the wait list for housing there. And while he says that, folks that are, have disabilities or on ODSP, he's going to take care of them. But anyone else, if you're healthy, you can work. And I think it's really been shocking for a lot of advocates and opposition critics who say that this is just heartless comments. It's not easy for someone in an encampment to just go and print off a resume and get a job, and that there are a lot of other, policies here that the Premier should be looking at. And so really, they're saying that his comments have just incensed communities and created divides where really, we need a more thoughtful policy to solve these issues.
The headlines, the pace, the frequency, the boldness of what he's saying, it all feels like an election campaign, right? And there's been all of this speculation that Doug Ford wants to go early. I mean, is that what is happening here? Is this all seeding the ground for an early election here in Ontario, Sabrina?
It certainly feels that way, right? Like this is, even today, the Premier again sort of played into some of that speculation, saying there's not going to be an election this year, but was a bit more shy and coy when asked about if we were going to the polls in 2025. I think, while that is still a possibility for a lot of reasons, they might want to pull the trigger before the federal government has an election. I think this has also been beneficial because it's really forced the opposition parties to get into campaign mode while they're floundering in the polls, especially compared to Doug Ford. They've had to fundraise, recruit candidates, and so they've been scrambling. And I think that's not lost on Doug Ford and the Conservatives right now.
All right, Sabrina, we always appreciate it. That's Sabrina Nanji with the Queen's Park Observer. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.